The stars looked peaceful from the bridge of the UFS Liberty as Captain Jake Morrison watched the endless darkness of space. His ship moved slowly through the outer rim territories, far from Earth and the busy core worlds of the Galactic Federation. The Liberty was an exploration vessel, built for long journeys and discovery missions. Jake had been commanding her for 3 years now, and he loved the quiet moments between planets. Commander Lisa Hayes sat at the communication station, her fingers moving over the controls as she monitored deep space signals. The bridge was calm, with only the soft hum of the ship's engines breaking the silence. Most of the crew was off duty, resting or working on routine maintenance tasks. "Captain," Lisa called out suddenly, her voice sharp with concern. "I'm picking up a distress signal." Jake turned toward her station. "Where's it coming from?" "The Kepler 442 system. It's about 18 hours away at maximum speed." Lisa frowned as she adjusted her equipment. "Sir, this doesn't sound good." The main screen flickered to life, showing a bluish alien face with large, dark eyes. The creature looked terrified, and its voice shook as it spoke in the Common Federation. Language: "This is Colony Leader Murdoch of the Zephyrian. Settlement on Kepler 442b. We are under attack by the Ravak Horde. They came without warning 3 days ago. Our defenses are gone. Our evacuation ships are destroyed. We have maybe 72 hours before they finish their orbital bombardment and begin landing their armies. Please, anyone who receives this message, we need help. We have 3 million civilians with nowhere to run." The transmission cut to static, then repeated from the beginning. Jake stared at the screen, his jaw tight. He knew about the Zephyrians. They were peaceful aquatic beings who had joined the Federation 50 years ago. They built beautiful underwater cities and spent their time creating art and studying science. They had no military at all. He also knew about the Ravak Horde. They were raiders who swept through space, destroying entire worlds. They took what they wanted and killed everything else. No one had ever successfully fought them off when they came in full force. "Get me Lieutenant Commander Ryan Clark," Jake ordered. Ryan arrived on the bridge within minutes, still wearing his workout clothes. As the ship's tactical officer, he knew more about military threats than anyone else on board. "Sir?" Ryan asked, slightly out of breath. "Show him the message," Jake told Lisa. Ryan watched the Zephyrian plea with growing concern. When it ended, he shook his head grimly. "Captain, our intelligence reports say the Ravak usually travel with at least 200 ships when they hit a major target. They've got massive dreadnoughts and fighters. The Zephyrians have nothing that can stop them." Dr. Amanda Foster entered the bridge, followed by Chief Engineer Bobby Chun. Word was already spreading through the ship about the distress call. "Captain," Amanda said, "we can't just ignore this. Those people are going to die." Bobby looked worried. "But what can we do? We're just one ship. The Liberty isn't even a warship." Jake called up the tactical display on the main screen. It showed the Kepler system with red markers indicating Ravak fleet positions. The enemy ships surrounded the planet like a deadly net. "Lisa, have you detected any other Federation responses to this distress call?" Lisa checked her monitors. 17 different species received the signal, sir. None of them are sending help." "What?" Amanda looked shocked. "Why not?" Ryan answered quietly. "Because the Ravak Horde is too dangerous. Most Federation species are peaceful. They don't maintain large military forces. Fighting the Ravak means accepting huge losses, and most governments won't risk it." Jake studied the tactical display for several minutes. His crew watched him, waiting for orders. The Liberty carried advanced human weapons that other species considered too destructive for normal use. Kinetic cannons, plasma batteries, and experimental antimatter torpedoes filled their weapons bays. But one ship against 200 seemed impossible. Navigation Officer Emma Rodriguez spoke up from her station. "Captain, I've run the numbers. We could reach Kepler 442b in 18 hours using our experimental jump drive. But sir, even if we get there, what then? Weapons Officer Tony Riggs turned in his chair. Our firepower is impressive for an exploration vessel, but we're talking about the entire Ravik horde here. Jake made his decision. Open a channel to Earth Fleet Command. The main screen changed to show Admiral Patricia Stone sitting in her office on Luna Base. The Admiral looked tired, but her eyes were sharp and alert. Captain Morrison. I assume this is about the Zephyrian situation. Yes, ma'am. Admiral, we need to help them. Admiral Stone leaned back in her chair. Jake, I've been monitoring the situation. The numbers are impossible. The Ravik have overwhelming force advantage. Admiral, they're going to wipe out 3 million innocent people. The Federation won't act, but we can, with one ship. Jake straightened. No, ma'am, with everything we've got. Admiral Stone was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see her thinking, weighing the costs and risks. Finally, she nodded. Double quotes, very well, Captain. I'm authorizing Operation Righteous Thunder. How many ships do you need? Everything available, Admiral. This isn't just about saving the Zephyrians anymore. This is about showing the galaxy that someone will stand up to bullies. Admiral Stone smiled grimly. Understood. I'm mobilizing the 4th Fleet immediately. The battleship UFS Vengeance will serve as flagship. We'll have 12 ships ready to jump within 6 hours. Thank you, Admiral. The connection ended, and Jake turned to his crew. You heard the orders. We're going to war. Bobby Chun looked nervous. Captain, are you sure about this? We're talking about fighting the most dangerous raider fleet in known space. Bobby, my family came from people who stood up to bullies throughout history. Sometimes you have to fight, even when the odds are bad, because it's the right thing to do. Emma was already plotting their course. Jump coordinates laid in, sir. We can reach the system ahead of the main fleet. Tony checked his weapons. Systems. All batteries charged and ready, Captain. Lisa opened communications channels to the other human ships that were preparing to join them. Fleet coordination established. Admiral Stone's ships will arrive 4 hours after us. Dr. Amanda prepared her medical bay for casualties. I don't like violence, but I won't let those people die if we can help them. Jake looked around at his crew, proud of their courage. Listen up, everyone. The Zephyrians called for help, and 17 species ignored them. But humans don't abandon people in trouble. We're going to show the Ravik horde what happens when you threaten innocent lives while Earth's children are watching. The UFS Liberty changed course toward the Kepler system, its engines pushing the ship to maximum speed. Behind them, more human warships began leaving their patrol stations and supply bases, all converging on the same destination. In 18 hours, the Ravik would learn why Earth was classified as a death world, and why the species that evolved there made such dangerous enemies when protecting others. The UFS Liberty dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, and the crew immediately saw the horror unfolding around the blue-green planet below. Hundreds of Ravik warships formed a deadly ring around Kepler 442b, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. Bright flashes of light showed where orbital bombardments were striking the planet's surface. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display with cold anger. The Ravik fleet was even larger than their intelligence reports had suggested. Over 200 ships, including massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed his own vessel. Captain, Commander Lisa Hayes reported from her station. I'm detecting massive fires on the planet's surface. The bombardment has been going on for hours. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Clark studied his tactical screens. Sir, they've already begun landing ground troops. I count at least 50 transport ships that have made surface contact. Jake activated the ship's communications. This is Captain Morrison to all stations. Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat. Admiral Patricia. Stone's voice came through the comm system. Jake, this is Admiral Stone aboard the UFS Vengeance. We're still 3 hours out. Can you hold position until we arrive? Jake looked at the burning planet on the main screen. Negative, Admiral. Those people don't have 3 hours. We're going in. Captain, you're heavily outnumbered. Yes, ma'am. But we're also human. Jake cut the connection and turned to his crew. Emma, take us in. Full speed toward the planet. Navigation Officer Emma Rodriguez's fingers flew over her controls. Course. Laid in, sir. The Liberty raced toward the inner system, her engines pushed to maximum power. The Ravek fleet noticed the approaching ship immediately. Within minutes, Jake's communications officer picked up an incoming transmission. The main screen showed a reptilian face with yellow eyes and sharp teeth. The creature wore military insignia and looked confident and cruel. Unknown vessel. This is War Commander Thakvin of the Ravak Horde. You will identify yourself immediately and explain your presence in our operational area. Jake stepped forward, his voice calm and steady. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran Defense Force. You have exactly 60 seconds to cease your attack on this planet and withdraw your forces, or we will show you why Earth is classified as a death world. Thakvin laughed, a harsh sound that filled the bridge. Terran, I have never heard of your species. You pilot one small ship against the might of the Horde. Are you insane? No, Jake replied quietly. We're human. There's a difference. The Ravek commander's expression changed to anger. You dare threaten us? We have conquered 12 star systems. Entire fleets have fallen before our power. Have any of those fleets been human? What? I asked if any of those fleets you destroyed were human. Thakvin looked confused. No, but that is irrelevant. Actually, it's the most important thing you need to know. You see, we humans evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us. Predators, weather, volcanoes, floods, ice ages, plagues, and other humans. We got very good at fighting back. The Ravek commander bared his teeth. Empty words. You will surrender or be destroyed. Jake smiled coldly. Your 60 seconds are up. The transmission ended, and Jake turned to his weapons officer. Tony, target their nearest heavy cruiser. Fire all forward batteries. Weapons Officer Tony Riggs pressed his controls, and the Liberty's kinetic cannons roared to life. Instead of the energy weapons that most space battles used, the human ship fired solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. The Ravek cruisers. Shields flared and collapsed under the unexpected assault. Direct hit, Tony reported. Their shields are down, and they're venting atmosphere. The Ravak fleet reacted quickly, turning dozens of ships toward the lone human vessel. Energy beams lanced through space, but the Liberty was already moving, diving toward the planet at an angle that confused the enemy targeting systems. Emma. Evasive maneuvers, Jake ordered. Ryan, coordinate with our fighter squadrons. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Clark opened channels to the Liberty's small fighter wing. All pilots, this is Control. Launch immediately and attack pattern Delta. 6 human fighters launched from the Liberty's bays, led by Lieutenant Sam Davis. The small ships immediately began weaving through the Ravak formations, their pilots using atmospheric flight training to navigate the chaotic battle. Dr. Amanda Foster's voice came over the comm from the medical bay. Captain, I'm treating our first casualties. Minor injuries from that last hit. Understood, Doctor. Prepare for more. The Liberty continued her attack run, striking at Ravak ships with weapons that seemed impossible to the enemy. While other species relied on energy shields and long-range beam weapons, humans used missiles, kinetic rounds, and tactics that brought their ships dangerously close to enemy vessels. Tony fired a spread of antimatter torpedoes at a Ravak dreadnought. The massive ship's shields absorbed most of the damage, but the explosion was so bright it temporarily blinded sensors throughout the battle area. What kind of weapons are these? came a panicked transmission from a Ravak ship. Jake opened a general channel. These are human weapons, designed by a species that learned to hunt creatures the size of buildings. We don't fight fair, and we don't give up. The battle raged for 30 minutes before the first Ravak ship was destroyed. Lieutenant Sam Davis managed to get his fighter inside the shields of a Ravak destroyer and fired his entire missile load into the ship's reactor core. The explosion lit up space like a small sun. "That's one down," Sam reported, his voice calm despite flying through enemy fire. More human fighters joined the battle as the Liberty's squadron spread out through the Ravak formation. The enemy had expected a simple target practice, but instead found themselves fighting opponents who seemed to ignore their own safety in pursuit of victory. Chief Engineer Bobby Chen worked frantically to keep the Liberty systems running as enemy fire damaged hull plating and overloaded power conduits. "Captain, we've lost shields on sections 4 and 7. Engine efficiency is down to 80%. Can you give me more speed?" "I can give you everything she's got, but it won't last long." "Do it." The Liberty accelerated toward the planet, diving through the Ravak fleet like a missile. Enemy ships turned to follow, but the human vessel's erratic flight path made targeting difficult. Jake was using every trick he had learned in years of deep space exploration. Emma Rodriguez plotted microjumps that let the Liberty appear suddenly behind enemy ships, fire a devastating barrage, then jump away before return fire could hit them. The tactic was dangerous and used enormous amounts of power, but it was working. "Captain," Lisa Hayes reported, "I'm detecting Admiral Stone's fleet approaching the system." "Ada, 15 minutes. Tell the Admiral we're softening them up for her arrival." The tide of battle began to shift as more human ships appeared at the edge of the system. The Ravak fleet, which had been confident in their overwhelming numbers, started to show signs of confusion and fear. They had never fought an enemy that seemed to consider ramming attacks and point-blank weapon exchanges as normal tactics. War Commander Thakvan's voice crackled over the communications. "What are you? No civilized species fights like this." Jake's response was broadcast to every ship in the system. "We're not civilized, we're human. We're the species that looked at a world full of things trying to kill us and decided to kill them back. And right now, you're threatening innocent people while we're watching." The Ravak flagship began pulling back from the planet, but Jake ordered the Liberty to pursue. The chase led them into the planet's atmosphere, where human atmospheric combat training gave them a decisive advantage over the space-only Ravak vessels. As Admiral Stone's fleet entered the battle, Jake smiled grimly. The real fight was about to begin. Admiral Patricia Stone's battleship, UFS Vengeance, dropped out of hyperspace with 11 other human warships behind her. The massive vessel was 3 times the size of the Liberty and carried enough firepower to level a city. Stone watched the tactical display as her fleet assumed battle formation around the Kepler system. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "Captain Morrison's ship is engaged in atmospheric combat with Ravak forces. He's taken heavy damage but is still fighting." Stone opened a channel to the Liberty. "Jake, report your status." Captain Morrison's voice came through static and explosions. "Admiral, we've lost main engines and most of our weapons, but we're still flying. The Ravak are pulling back from the planet, but they're regrouping for a major assault." "Understood. Fall back to the fleet, Captain. We'll take it from here." The human fleet moved toward the planet in a formation that confused the Ravak commanders. Instead of the line formations that most space battles used, the human ship spread out in a 3-dimensional pattern that covered multiple attack angles. War Commander Thakvan transmitted to all Ravak ships. "Unknown species, you are still heavily outnumbered. We have 200 ships to your 12. Surrender now, and we may spare your lives." Admiral Stone's response was broadcast to every vessel in the system. "This is Admiral Patricia Stone of the Terran Defense Force. We don't surrender to bullies. We end them. The second battle began with a coordinated missile strike from the human fleet. Hundreds of antimatter torpedoes streaked toward the Ravak formation, but these were different from the weapons they had seen before. The missiles had adaptive guidance systems that could change course even after launch. The Ravak ships fired their defensive weapons, but the human missiles split apart into smaller warheads that overwhelmed the point defense systems. Explosions rippled through the enemy fleet as ship after ship lost shields or took hull damage. All ships, advance to close range, Admiral Stone ordered. Show them how humans fight. The human fleet charged directly at the Ravak formation, ignoring the energy weapons that struck their shields. The Ravak had never seen anything like it. Most space battles were fought at long range with careful maneuvering and conservative tactics. The humans fought like they were in a street fight. Colonel Steve Parker led the first wave of human ground forces toward the planet's surface. His transport ships carried Marines trained for combat in any environment. As they approached the flooded Zephyrian cities, Parker opened channels to his squad leaders. Listen up, Marines. The Ravak have been terrorizing civilians down there for 3 days. Time to show them what happens when you mess with innocent people while humans are watching. Major Kelly Brooks commanded the second wave of transports. Her ships carried medical supplies and evacuation equipment for the Zephyrian civilians. Colonel, we're detecting heavy Ravak presence in the coastal cities. They've got the population centers surrounded. Copy that, Major. We'll clear them. Out. The human transports dove through the planet's atmosphere while the space battle raged above them. Ravak fighters tried to intercept them, but the human pilots used atmospheric flight techniques that the space-only enemy fighters couldn't match. Sergeant Danny Miller led his squad through the flooded streets of the Zephyrian city of Equatel. The buildings were beautiful curved structures that rose from the water like giant shells. But now they were damaged and burning from Ravak bombardment. Sergeant, called Corporal Amy Johnson, I've got Zephyrian life signs 3 blocks ahead. Looks like they're trapped in a collapsed building. Danny's squad moved through the shallow water, their equipment adapted for amphibious operations. When they reached the building, they found a group of Zephyrian civilians huddled in a basement that was slowly flooding. The aliens looked terrified when they saw the human soldiers. Zephyrians were tall and thin with blue-green skin and large, dark eyes. They had never seen humans before and didn't know what to expect. It's okay, Danny said, using his translator device. We're here to help. We're from Earth and we came to stop the Ravak. One of the Zephyrians, an elderly female, swam forward. You came to help us? But we sent our distress call to 17 different species. No one answered. We answered, Amy replied. Humans always answer when innocent people are in trouble. The Marines helped evacuate the civilians to safety, but their rescue operation was interrupted by Ravak ground troops. The enemy soldiers were large reptilian creatures with heavy armor and energy weapons. Contact, Danny called into his radio. Ravak infantry, 20 meters ahead. The firefight that followed showed why human soldiers were different from other species. The Ravak were used to fighting defensive battles against poorly armed civilians. They had never faced opponents who had trained for combat since childhood. Danny's squad used cover and movement tactics that came from centuries of human warfare. They flanked the enemy positions, used improvised weapons, and coordinated their attacks with deadly precision. Above them, the space battle continued to rage. The UFS Vengeance traded massive energy blasts with 3 Ravak dreadnoughts at once. Admiral Stone's ship was taking heavy damage, but she refused to retreat. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, we've lost forward shields and taken hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Continue firing, Stone ordered. Target there. Command ship. The Vengeance's main guns fired a concentrated barrage at the Ravak flagship. The enemy ship's shields collapsed and explosions tore through its hull. War Commander Thakvin's bridge filled with smoke and sparks. All ships retreat to the outer system, Thakvin ordered. We will regroup and call for reinforcements. But the human fleet pursued them, refusing to let the Ravak escape. Captain Morrison's damaged Liberty rejoined the battle, limping along on auxiliary power but still firing her remaining weapons. Dr. Amanda Foster worked frantically in the Liberty's medical bay, treating wounded from both sides of the conflict. When the first Ravak prisoners were brought aboard, she gave them the same medical care as human casualties. "Doctor," one of the wounded Ravak soldiers asked through a translator, "why do you help us? We are your enemies." Amanda looked up from her work, "Because that's what humans do. We fight to protect innocent people, and we help anyone who needs medical care, even our enemies." On the planet's surface, the human ground forces had broken the Ravak siege of the major cities. Zephyrian civilians were being evacuated to safety, while human marines cleared the remaining enemy positions. Dr. Veltar, a Zephyrian scientist, watched the human soldiers with fascination. These beings fought with a skill and determination that amazed him. They seemed to adapt to any situation, using whatever tools and tactics were needed to win. "Remarkable," he whispered to himself. "They fight like they evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them." The third day of battle ended with the Ravak forces in full retreat. Their ground troops were evacuating from the planet, while their fleet pulled back to the edge of the system. But sensors were detecting something that worried the human commanders. "Admiral," the Vengeance's sensor officer reported, "long-range scanners are picking up massive energy signatures approaching from Ravak space. It looks like their entire fleet is coming." Admiral Stone studied the readings with growing concern. "How many ships?" "Over 500, ma'am. Dreadnoughts, battleships, carriers. Everything they've got." Stone opened a channel to Earth Fleet. "Command, this is Admiral Stone. We need immediate reinforcements. The Ravak are bringing their entire military force to bear on our position." The response came back within minutes. "Admiral, this is Fleet Command. Every available ship is being dispatched to your location. Hold position at all costs." Stone looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Ravak Armada. "All ships, prepare for the fight of our lives. It looks like we're about to face the entire Ravak horde." Captain Morrison's voice came over the fleet communications. "Admiral, the Zephyrians are asking if we're going to retreat now that we're so badly outnumbered." Stone smiled grimly. "Tell them that humans don't retreat when innocent people need protection. We're going to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten someone while Earth's children are watching." The human fleet began preparing for the largest space battle in their history. The massive Ravak horde dropped out of hyperspace like a dark cloud covering the stars. Over 500 warships appeared at the edge of the Kepler system, their hulls blotting out entire sections of space. Supreme Commander Grake Thul commanded the fleet from his enormous flagship, a vessel larger than some human space stations. Admiral Patricia Stone watched the enemy Armada approach and opened channels to Earth Fleet Command. "This is Admiral Stone. We need everything you can send us. Now." The response amazed even her veteran crew. "Admiral, this is Fleet Admiral Charles Davis aboard the UFS Retribution. We're bringing the entire home fleet. 300 ships are already jumping to your position." Within 2 hours, human reinforcements began arriving from across Federation space. Ships came from Earth, Mars, the asteroid mining stations, and human colonies on dozens of worlds. The largest vessel was Fleet Admiral Davis's dreadnought UFS Retribution, carrying weapons powerful enough to crack a planet's crust. Captain Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the repaired Liberty as the human fleet assembled. His ship had been patched together with spare parts and determination, but she was ready to fight again. "Jake," Admiral Stone's voice came over the communications, "you've done enough. Take your ship back to safety." Morrison smiled. "Negative." Admiral, we started this fight, and we're going to finish it. Supreme Commander Greg Thole transmitted to the human fleet, his voice filled with arrogance. Humans of Terra, you have impressed us with your fighting spirit. But you face the combined might of the Ravak Horde, 500 ships against your 300. Surrender now, and we will grant you quick deaths. Fleet Admiral Davis responded from the Retribution. This is Fleet Admiral Charles Davis of Earth's Defense Force. You have exactly one chance to withdraw from this system and never threaten innocent people again. Greg Thole laughed harshly. You still think you can win? We have conquered 12 star systems. Entire civilizations have fallen before us. Captain Morrison opened a channel that broadcast to every ship in both fleets. Supreme Commander, you made one critical error in your calculations. You threatened innocent people while humans were watching. Now you face the combined anger of every human who ever stood up to a bully, every human who ever protected someone weaker, every human who ever decided that today was not the day for good people to die. The final battle began when the Ravak fleet opened fire with every weapon they had. Thousands of energy beams crossed space, striking human shields and armor. But the human fleet was ready. Fleet Admiral Davis had deployed his ships using tactics learned from Earth's naval history. The human formation looked scattered and weak, but it was actually a complex trap designed to break up large enemy formations. All ships, execute Deathworld Protocol, Davis ordered. The human fleet split into small groups that attacked from multiple directions at once. They used the system's asteroids as cover, hiding behind rocks the size of mountains before striking at exposed enemy ships. Commander Nick Torres led a squadron of human fighters in a direct assault on a Ravak carrier. His wingman, Lieutenant Sophie Hayes, stayed close as they dove through clouds of enemy fighters. Sophie, break left and hit their launch bays, Nick called over the radio. Copy that, Nick, going in hot. The human fighters moved like they were hunting predators in Earth's atmosphere. They used three-dimensional tactics that confused enemies used to flat space battles. The Ravak fighters couldn't match their speed or coordination. On the planet below, the evacuation of Zephyrian civilians continued under the protection of Colonel Steve Parker's Marines. Major Kelly Brooks coordinated the operation while Sergeant Danny Miller led patrols to clear remaining Ravak forces from the cities. Dr. Veltar, the Zephyrian scientist, watched human soldiers work alongside his people with growing amazement. They risked their lives for strangers, he told Major Brooks. I have never seen such behavior. That's what humans do, Kelly replied. We protect people who can't protect themselves. The space battle raged for hours as both fleets took heavy casualties. The Ravak had superior numbers, but the humans fought with tactics and determination that their enemies couldn't match. Human ships deliberately rammed enemy vessels when their weapons failed, sacrificing themselves to protect the fleet. Admiral Stone's flagship, UFS Vengeance, dueled with 3 Ravak dreadnoughts at once. Her ship was heavily damaged, with fires burning on multiple decks, but she refused to retreat. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, we've lost main engines and most of our weapons. The ship can't take much more. Then we'll ram them, Stone replied calmly. Set collision course for their flagship. But Fleet Admiral Davis intervened before Stone could sacrifice her ship. The massive UFS Retribution moved between the Vengeance and the enemy dreadnoughts, absorbing their fire with shields designed to withstand asteroid impacts. Patricia, fall back and coordinate the fleet, Davis ordered. We've got this. The Retribution's main guns fired planet-killer missiles originally designed to destroy asteroids threatening Earth colonies. The weapons struck the Ravak flagship with the force of nuclear explosions, cracking its hull and causing massive internal damage. Supreme Commander Greg Thule's bridge filled with smoke and sparks. All ships, focus fire on their largest vessel. Destroy the humans' command ship. But the human fleet had spread out across the entire system, making it impossible for the Ravek to concentrate their fire effectively. Human ships appeared behind. Asteroids fired devastating barrages, then disappeared before enemy weapons could target them. Captain Morrison's Liberty, despite her damage, managed to get close enough to a Ravek dreadnought to fire her remaining antimatter torpedoes directly into the enemy ship's reactor core. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface. Dr. Amanda Foster continued treating casualties in medical stations throughout the human fleet. When Ravek survivors were brought in, she gave them the same care as human wounded, earning respect even from enemy prisoners. "Why do you help us?" a wounded Ravek soldier asked her. "Because healing people is what I do," Amanda replied. "Human or alien, everyone deserves medical care." The tide of battle turned when the Ravek fleet began to break apart under human pressure. Ships that had conquered 12 star systems found themselves outfought by an enemy that seemed to thrive on impossible odds. "All Ravek vessels, retreat to the outer system," Supreme Commander Grakthul ordered. "We will regroup and plan a new assault." But Fleet Admiral Davis wasn't finished. "All ships, pursue and disable their command vessel. We're going to make sure word of this defeat reaches every Ravek base in space." The human fleet chased the retreating Ravek armada to the edge of the system. The UFS Retribution caught up with Grakthul's damaged flagship and forced it to surrender after a final brief battle. When the fighting ended, over half the Ravek fleet had been destroyed or captured. The survivors limped away from Kepler 442b, carrying news of their defeat back to Ravek space. The Zephyrian people were safe. Their beautiful cities were damaged but could be rebuilt. More importantly, they had learned that someone in the galaxy would stand up for innocent people. Against overwhelming odds. Dr. Veltar began writing his report to the Galactic Federation about the humans and their military capabilities. His final observation would become a key principle in Federation first contact protocols. "Never underestimate a species that evolved by surviving everything their homeworld could throw at them," he wrote, "because they will apply that same determination to protecting others." Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching human ships establish patrol routes around the Zephyrian system. His crew had been promoted and would help train other Federation species in human defensive tactics. The battle was over, but its effects would ripple across the galaxy for generations. Other peaceful species began requesting human protection, and aggressive raiders learned to avoid systems where Earth's ships patrolled. Humanity had answered the call with firepower, and the galaxy was safer because of it.